and good evening. This is Doc Severson for the ReadySetCrypto OMNIA newsletter market update for Sunday, the 16th of February. OMG, we have distribution in the market. So after a couple of weeks of really nice gains, actually, this has been about 6 weeks of really nice upside action. We're seeing a little bit of red candles distribution, and people are obviously panicking because they don't know what to do. It's not like we haven't changed anything, right? So this is the same old thing, same old drill. There's a lot of ways that we can take advantage of these pullbacks. And actually the pullbacks are good things because they create a more balanced market. What I don't want to see is, this sort of stuff. This sort of stuff is always bad because it always leads to this sort of stuff. So I like to see this stair-stepping action. This is really good. Now, how can you use something like this to get on board? Because let's face it, probably most people did not buy the breakout from the inverted head and shoulders pattern. I mean, there was really no reason to think that this one was going to hold any more than anything else, unless you were using your powers of telekinesis, right? So what we do in technical analysis is we don't predict the future. We simply analyze price action and look for probabilities that are in our favor based on how the price has acted in the past. It's a big difference. It's a subtle difference that a lot of people don't understand. Everybody thinks that slapping on these indicators is going to give us a prediction of what's going to happen in the future. I get asked all the time, hey, is this a good buy point? What's going to happen in the future? I have no idea. But what I can do is I can analyze the chart and understand where a good probability is. That gives you a little bit of edge and offers you at least a better than even odds of winning the trade. From there, it's simply risk management to make sure that if you're wrong, you don't lose too much. So a lot of things that we can do with just price action. So first of all, there's the notion of using swing tests and pivots. So swing tests and pivots. So what you're looking for is some set of prices that represent what you would consider to be resistance. And in this case, yeah, it might be up here, but quite honestly, it had a difficult time breaking above 8,200. Former resistance becomes new support as the price breaks above there, comes down and retests at 8,200. That is a swing test. Now what do we have? The same thing. We have the former high at 9,200. Former resistance becomes new support. There's another swing test based on the pivot. Breakout above this level, which is 9,600. So former resistance becomes new support. There we go. So the further up that we go into this stack, the more likely that we're going to run into a corrective wave. So for those of you that want to get further into this, you can access the new Elliott Wave course. But quite honestly, when we see a weekly swing, which gets into, let's just say, exhaustion. So this is one way that we can look at this, is just to throw on the RSI Laguerre, throw on a weekly time frame and say, is this into exhaustion yet? Not really. So we may have one more swing to the upside out of here before we get into exhaustion. You can see the exhaustion that hit this one and almost doomed any kind of pullback from here as being a lower high. But this one's been such a stair-stepping mode that we may have just one more swing because the weekly chart right now is showing an energy of about 44, which actually could support maybe one more pop to the upside. Okay. So let's get this off of here. Let's continue to focus on price and volume. Now, another thing that we can do from here is to throw a trend line on here. Rule number 3 of price action is that ascending patterns will remain ascending until they break that trend line. Rising patterns will eventually break to the downside. Now, the warning here is that if I like this because not only do you have a swing test, but you also have confluence. Confluence is when you're starting to stack the odds. of more than one indicator put together. So a lot of times you can stack confluence with things like trend lines, with pivot swing tests, with maybe a Bollinger Band. The price pulls down to a Bollinger Band. Maybe you can stack some exhaustion on the pullback at a smaller time frame. There's lots of things that you can do to stack your odds of identifying a good buy spot. So what you have to watch for on this one is the further up that you go. Let me back up for a second. The best entries that you'll ever get are the ones that are closest to the trend reversal, the change in polarity. Those are the best, because what you've got is you got way too many bears on the wrong side of the price, and all of a sudden they're getting bent over backwards. They're scrambling to get out, and this is where you're going to find the best entries. Coincidentally, they're going to feel the worst to enter, which is why nobody does them, because most people do trading by feel. The further up that you go, the more sense it's going to make. You're going to say, I spot a pattern. I see structure here. So the further up that you're going to go in this, the more logical things will look for you, the more comfortable that you're going to be with the entries. But unfortunately, usually these are the worst ones. Now, we might be able to get some kind of a bounce out of this, but don't be surprised if this turns into a lower high and turns into a trap for the bulls. Becomes a bull trap, and unfortunately, then we start to work into our corrective matter. And this would be the weekly swing pulling back. This is how this all ties together when we go out to multiple time frames. This would be a weekly swing up. At some point, we're going to have a pullback. That's what we want. So we actually technically have a higher high in the price here. The price just inched up this week and was able to take out that prior swing high. So what that does mean is that, well, that's good. It's almost like, reaching up and hitting the bell. That means that on the next low here, this should be a higher low on the weekly chart. So we've improved the probabilities that any pullback on the weekly chart, which is going to freak everybody out, quite honestly. Nobody's going to want, after 6 weeks of upside movement here, nobody is going to tolerate this. You're going to see all hell break loose over here in the financial media that covers cryptocurrency, because they've got to have something to write about. And the more inflamed their text is, the more people will click on it. That's just the way it works. You've got to avoid that stuff. Understand the structure that's going on. Look at this as an opportunity. So the pullback that does show up at some point here will probably be an opportunity, and I underscore that probably. The odds are better than 50% that this is going to form a higher low, and that we're going to start working on higher low, higher high, weekly uptrend confirmed. That would be good. And oh, by the way, this will turn into a monthly swing. If we have a monthly uptrend off of the bottom here, this will turn into a monthly swing up. This is rule number 2. Reversals start from the inside out, and they propagate higher in time frame. So no indicators. This is all just price action. This is all making sense out of what is out there just in the price. And this, to me, is the strongest thing that you can do. It's the strongest stuff that's out there, is just reading the price action, and it's good stuff. And fortunately, things like this coin, which is BTC versus the US dollar, does a really nice job. And when it does move into this kind of linear stair-stepping movement, it's really good, because we have a lot of people following this. Now, let's go through some of the other coins here. I've got something to say about Ethereum. So the other day, we talked about this one, getting a little too high, and we set up the expected move. We did this Wednesday, I believe. Wednesday, we set up the expected move as being close to 230 by the end of the month. Well, when we go vertical like this, we are likely to pull back really strongly, even if it's just a transition from quiet and trending into sideways and volatile. So setting up a 230 put, if you'd done that, gone in for $4, let's look at what it's costing right now. So here's our Deribit options, and this is nowhere near the lows. But if we look at the 230 put, that is going for about 664 by 817. We were able to get into this for $4 the other day. And even if you sold this thing out at the bid, you're looking at least a 50% gain. That's not bad. And I've heard from other people that said that they got a double on this. So these are trades that don't necessarily feel good, but offer the edge because you've got tremendous risk reward on a trade like this. Because you're risking $4 into the end of the month. You're either going to wave goodbye at that, or the price is going to come down here and you've got to sell into the weakness. You can't say, well, I want to wait until this hits 170 and then I'll take profits. You know, I want to get a 10 bagger on this thing. It's unlikely to happen. If you want to do something like that, then break your position into different, like thirds or something like that. Take the first third off at a set target, take the second third off at a set target, and let the last third run. Break things up. Okay, so let's just go through a few more of these. We've had some of these have just gone parabolic, and so it's, anytime you see a parabolic run like this, you're going to have a hairy back, and this is what we're getting. A lot of volatility. I don't know what kind of news came in over the weekend that has scared people out, but we're seeing an awful lot of signals firing today, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So a lot of these ones didn't offer really good buy signal. I didn't really like chasing after these ones. Ethereum Classic, kind of the same thing. Anytime you get kind of ahead of things, you're going to have a rough go of it. Now, Tezos has stayed really strong. Some of these have done really well. Today has just been, Chainlink is just super strong right now. Chainlink is the coin. And, in the face of everything else, you're seeing Chainlink still doing really well. 0x, basic attention token, a lot of these are just getting trashed. And so what you'll find is that actually Bitcoin, even though it's been declining in terms of dominance lately, Bitcoin, the damage has been very limited towards Bitcoin. This is very common. When we have things like this, people are going back into a safe harbor. When we have big distribution like this in the altcoins, people go back into safe harbor, which is going to be the top 10, specifically Bitcoin versus the US dollar. So again, we can look through all of these, but right now we're getting sell programs firing on just about everything. So let's bring that up as well. So the trend trading is one of the strategies that we have gotten in play now and are starting to fire signals into the room. I'll show you that in a minute. So what we're doing is we've got the trend trading strategy, which is available, and it's available out at if you go to the trend trading class, it tells you where to find this. But quite honestly, the easiest way to find it is if you go to indicators and strategies and just start typing in RSC, and you'll see the trend trading study. And the latest one is version 4, which is right there. Okay, so this is the latest one, and the author just updated this one to give the latest Pine script. So we have a version 4, but all the rest of them will still work. It's just that if you want to use any kind of the alert function and some of the text, it's probably not worth going into at this point, but the strategy itself works just fine, regardless of which version that you have. So that's the actual indicator. If you want the actual strategy to be able to do strategy testing, back testing, and see how it performs against a certain coin, then this is the one that you want, which is the one with the little red and green arrows on it. Okay, so today a lot of sell signals are firing, and actually today is a good use to show that sometimes it's better to stay in a trade by just taking the close. But these ones that have gotten pretty stretched out, you'd probably want to take the intraday exit on that. So if you're in on this one at 550, getting an exit here at 11 something, that's a double. That's not bad, 100% return. Okay, and looking at some of these are still in play on a lot of these, giving yourself a lot of room to stay in the trade. on the volatility. Other ones have fired. So here's an example of one that fired intraday, and that's about a break-even trade. So you have to figure out, whether or not you want to take the intraday exit or take the closing exit. And there's about an hour and a half left in the day. Chainlink is still in play from, this thing is still in play from 240, and right now is sitting up at 4 something. Guys, here's our Discord group. If you go down to the trading pit and go to community trades, you're going to start to see some of these show up. So some of the buy signals, and lately a lot of sell signals, have showed up today. So it tells you what coin, what exchange, what price, those kind of things. And you can have Discord alert you, tap you on the shoulder, whatever, to let you know to do something about this. So each one of these will be identified with the actual strategy that we're trading against, because eventually we'll probably be putting more strategies out there. Now, what we might also do is we might delineate these into different channels. So different signals may go into different channels. We'll have to see how complicated that we want to do this. So for right now, all of them are going to go into community trades, or even if I just see something which is just an opportunity that we're seeing, I'll just put it into here. And there's also, if you go up to the very top of this channel, there's actually a forum that's out there that if you want to post a trade, you're welcome to do so as well. I mean, this is why it's called community trades. So everybody's welcome to post what it is that they're seeing, and many eyes work better than two. Now, if you get into the Discord room and you don't have access to this, first of all, you have to be an OMNIA member. If you are an OMNIA member, and if you don't have access to this, then please just either send us an email in through the support channel and tell us what your Discord username is, because otherwise we won't be able to factor it is, and we'll have to waste time asking you that question. Or you can send us a direct message to RSC Mav or RSC Doc, but you've also got to let us know what your email address is, since we have to authenticate your account. So back to the chart. Stay tuned this week. We'll probably have a much better idea as to whether this is just a one-time pullback on the daily chart, which leads to a higher high, or whether this leads to a lower high and starts the corrective process, which, as I've mentioned before, is not necessarily a bad thing. We do need that weekly pullback to print. The sooner the better. And oh, by the way, one more thing is Monday is a U.S. holiday, so there will be no newsletter on Monday. So I will see you guys on Tuesday. Thanks for listening. We'll see you then.